How's it going, everyone? This is the George here. And yes, I finally got to see Madam Web. I know it's everyone has seen this movie and have talked about this movie, but I didn't get a chance to see it last weekend. But this weekend I have finally seen it, and yikes with this one. So this one was directed by, I'm pretty sure it was S.J. Jackson, and stars Dakota Johnson as Cassandra Cassie Webb, who is this paramedic who, after an accident, can see into the future. And basically, she sees these three teenage girls getting killed and attacked by this guy named Ezekiel Sims. And so she's going out of her way to protect these girls. And Ezekiel, he's going after them because he also sees into the future and sees these girls becoming powerful and killing him one day. And once again, it's another Sony Marvel movie that no mention of Spider-Man, no mention of Peter Parker, even though. And yeah, I'm going to go into spoilers with this one because it's been out for over a week, so I feel comfortable going into spoilers with this one. Later in the movie, Peter Parker is born, but he's never called Peter Parker or anything. But yet, young Uncle Ben is in this movie, played by Adam Scott, and Peter Parker's mom, Mary Parker's in this movie, played by Emma Roberts. And I just don't know what they were thinking with this movie. I mean, I get they wanted to do a female-led superhero movie, Sony, for a while, but it seemed like they were more interested in doing something with Black Cat and Silver Sable. I had no idea they even considered Madam Web until this movie was being filmed. So it was kind of a surprise. And this movie also takes place in 2003, which is kind of fitting because it's being compared to the bad comic book movies of the 2000s. Not the good comic book movies like the first two Sam Raimi Spider Man movies, the first two X Men movies, the Dark Knight movies, and Iron Man. But with Madam Web, what's just infuriating is that this just feels like another attempt at making a movie with Spider-Man characters, but not having Spider-Man. I mean, you got the references. I mean, yeah, young Uncle Ben is in here, but there's this really cringe joke about, try not to get shot in Queens or something like that at the beginning of this movie. Um, the Ezekiel character is wearing this suit that looks like this edgy, evil-looking Spider-Man costume that just I mean, it might look cool, but it just looks cringe, and it just looks like if the CW network made a Spider-Man series. That's what the costume reminded me of. This is once again Sony doing false marketing because in the trailers it looks like these girls are going to get suited up in Spider-Man suits and fight this character, but it's only in the visions that they're suited up. They never suit up. They never get the powers in this movie. Heck, Madam Web doesn't even have a suit in this movie at all. It's like closer to the end that we see it when she's becoming the Professor X, Charles Xavier of the Sony Marvel universe. It's just that, again, it's just there's no originality in this movie. I'm not just talking about borrowing from other comic book movies. This wants to be Terminator so bad because you have this villain that's trying to take down these three girls before they become threats, but this other girl's trying to protect them. It just gives me certain Terminator vibes where the Terminator is trying to go after Sarah Connor before John Connor is born. Just no originality whatsoever. Some really cringy dialogue and line delivery. I mean, I'm not going to fault the actresses with this because they're a lot more talented than this. Dakota Johnson, I just don't know what is up with her choice in projects because it's not like I don't think she's a bad actress, but she's made some very questionable role choices. And I'm not just talking about, and it's obviously I'm talking about 50 Shades of Grey because she was Anastasia Steele in those movies. But here, I mean, she's trying to give it her all, but it's just not working. Sydney Sweeney, Celeste O'Connor, and Isabel Merced, they're trying to give it their all, but they're just giving this tween like dialogue that just comes across as cringe. I don't think it's gonna hurt their careers though. I mean, Isabel Merced said she's gonna be Hawkgirl in James Gunn's DC universe, so she's gonna have another shot at a comic book movie, and I think she's gonna have a lot more projects as Hawkgirl than in this universe because this movie just bombed so badly. The villain Ezekiel is just very dull. I mean, his costume it looks fine, even though It just like comes across as edgy Lord Spider-Man looking. But at least the villains in the other Sony movies, even if they weren't all that great, at least they were entertaining. This villain was just not entertaining. He was just kind of boring, and it felt like he was overacting at times. I mean, I get his motivations, but it just comes across as cringe as well. The performances of Adam Scott and Emma Roberts, I mean, they were okay, I guess. I mean, he's not going to stand out. Like, he's obviously going to be the weakest cinematic Ben Parker that we've gotten. I mean, he's no Cliff Robertson or Martin Sheen, who were a lot more iconic Nick, and wiser in this movie. And by the way, I just want to point out something. There's hints that he's dating someone, but they never mention the name May Riley, which was May Parker's name before she married Ben Parker. So the MCU can't mention Uncle Ben, but Sony can't mention Aunt May. Like, how does that work? I'm just so confused. And yeah, they make these like references saying, "Oh, what's the baby's name gonna be?" But he's never called Peter Parker. This baby, it just feels so weird. I remember there was a rumor. I don't know if it was last year or a couple years ago that the plot for Madam Web was gonna be that this villain is trying to kill Mary Parker before Peter Parker's born, and that Madam Web is rounding up these characters from other universes to help protect the baby. I feel like that would have just been a more interesting premise. I'm not saying it would have been a good movie, but it would have been more enjoyable than what we got. It would have been more interesting. But yeah, none of that's in this movie. So whoever had that scoop a couple years ago was completely off. But the action is just not entertaining. The final bout, it's like they're trying to make it entertaining, but it's not. And it didn't remind me of comic book movie Final Fight, but reminded me of other final fights in other movies. Soundtrack, there's nothing unique about that. There's this weird tribe at the beginning of the movie that has ties to how Cassandra Webb was born after her mom got shot while she was pregnant. And at the tie-ins with Ezekiel Sims. It's like there's attempts at trying to make this a heartfelt movie, especially this one scene where these characters are sharing their struggles in their personal lives, like what they're going through. But it just doesn't even deliver all that well. It's like even when they're trying to have heartfelt moments, they don't come across all that well. And if you compare this movie to the Marvels will run circles around this movie. I mean, that movie has its problems, but at least the line delivery wasn't bad. You can believe that these group of women can be a group of friends and work together. And I'm actually appreciating the Marvels a lot more after watching this movie. But the one thing this movie clearly tells us is that they have no idea what they're doing with this Sony universe where there's no Spider-Man. You're relying on Spider-Man related characters, but no one's really interested in them outside of maybe Venom. You once again false marketed a movie, and at a time when superhero fatigue has been kicking in, superhero movies haven't been all that great. I mean, you've had some great ones the last few years, but you've also had some very mediocre to not so good ones. This does not help stop the superhero fatigue. I think it actually makes it even worse. And there's going to be two more Sony Marvel movies that come out this year, Kraven the Hunter and Venom 3. And the Kraven the Hunter trailer does not look promising at all. It looks like another bad Sony mess. And with the rumors growing that there's disagreements between the Sony producers and Kevin Feige and Tom Holland on where to take the next MCU Spider-Man movie, apparently, according to Scoopers, I don't know how true this is, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was. Sony wants to make the fourth Tom Holland Spider-Man movie another multiverse movie with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, while Kevin Feige and Tom Holland want to do a more grounded, street-level Spider-Man movie. Sony wants John Watts to come back, where apparently Kevin Feige wants another director. I'm, but I also know John Watts wants a break from superhero movies, so I doubt he's gonna come back. But it seems like a realistic rumor because Sony has done this before, where they prioritize making money over the quality of something. It was shown with Spider-Man 3 when Sony put pressure on Sam Raimi to include Venom when Sam Raimi didn't want to include Venom. when The Amazing Spider-Man 2 spent a good chunk setting up other movies instead of focusing on the story, setting up the Sinister Six movie and all that, when they still went through with making a Venom movie despite not having Spider-Man, where they went through making a Morbius movie after Venom made a lot of money. I mean, I get you got to make money, but at a certain point, if you're not delivering, people are going to stop watching. Because I know the first Venom movie made a lot of money. I know Venom 2, while it didn't make a whole lot of money, it still made a pretty good amount of money despite coming out while a pandemic was still happening. But with Venom 3, considering Spider-Man's most likely not going to be in that movie, are a lot of people going to want to see that movie? It's just very questionable. And Sony has shown that outside of the first two Spider-Man movies, although I do like Spider-Man 3, um, Amazing Spider-Man I'll include in that because people do like the Amazing Spider-Man, the first Amazing Spider-Man movie, and the Into the Spider-Verse movies, the Spider-Verse movies. Sony has this really messy record, especially when they don't have the MCU. I mean, I know people have been critical of the MCU, myself included, but one thing we can't deny is that the MCU has had three very good, great Spider-Man movies at least. They have their flaws, but they're a lot better than a lot of the stuff Sony has given us outside of the Spider-Verse movies and the first two Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. And story wise, Kevin Feige saw that it made sense to have Toby and Andrew in that movie, but will it make sense for another Spider-Man movie? Like right away? It would make more sense to wait to have them appear in Secret Wars or whatever Avenger movie is going to have big multiverse stuff, because there's rumors with King Dynasty that's no longer King Dynasty. So who knows if that's going to be where the multiverse stuff happens or if that's going to be Secret Wars. Who knows what's going to happen? But I feel like it would be more exciting for them to be in like a Secret Wars project where more crossovers can happen and they can interact with other Marvel characters than another multiverse Spider-Man movie where what would you do with that? Will you have characters from this bad universe that we're currently being given appear like Morbius and Madam Web? I just don't get what their goal is for this universe. It's like you're trying to find stuff, you're throwing stuff and seeing what sticks. And by the way, does anyone remember when El Muerto was announced? It was going to come out around this time of the year. Yeah, that movie got canceled. That's what I mean. Bad Bunny wanted to do an El Muerto movie, and Sony was like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." Even though the character only appeared in 2 comics. But yeah, Madam Web. Just getting back to Madam Web. This is just another Sony mess that's hilariously bad, cringy, a dull villain, bad Easter eggs, and more frustration in regards to how Sony's approaching these movies in regards to using Spider-Man characters without having Spider-Man in the universe. Madam Web gets an F. I don't know if I've ever given an F on this channel. I think maybe for Batman and Robin, but yikes, this was just a big, big misfire from Sony. And if those rumors are true that Sony and Kevin Feige and Tom Holland are having disagreements over how to handle the next Spider-Man movie, I rather trust Kevin Feige and Tom Holland despite the problems the MCU is having than Sony, because yikes, this was just a big mess. This was just horrible. I wouldn't say it's the worst comic book movie I've seen, but it's definitely one of the worst movies. Not only did it make me appreciate the Marvels a lot more, even though I don't think that's a bad movie, but also made me appreciate Morbius a little bit more. At least Morbius, there was some cool action sequences. The action here was just lame. But yeah, Madam Web, have you seen it? What did you think about it? And what's one of the worst comic book movies that you have seen? Let me know in the comments down below. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe already. If you haven't, please share us with someone that is curious about the current state of Sony movies, who has a lot of problems with Madam Web. And I hope to see you guys real soon. Take care, everyone.